PR Connections Radio presents.
Hello, world, and welcome to Watching Mental Health, a show dedicated to breaking down the stories, the research, and the stigma around mental health. Whether you're a provider, a professional, a patient, a loved one, or someone with lived experience, this show is for you. I am on a mission to make mental health more accessible and more digestible. Here's how it works. Every episode, we will bring in a new guest in the mental health space and talk about all things mental health stigma, treatment, and recovery. Do you want to be a part of the movement? Join me live every first and third Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Watching Mental Health. And thank you for joining me today. And I'm really excited about today's episode because this is something a little bit different from what we've done so far. And we're going to really have more of a conversation, I think, patient to patient. And so with that, I want to talk a little bit about who our guest is this week. And so our guest is going to be Geoff Radcliffe. He's a local entrepreneur and owner of Post Launch, a digital marketing juggernaut in Las Vegas. Actually, my previous boss, which is funny. And this week's topic is all about the power of therapy from one patient to another. So we really want to make this relatable. And Geoff is going to be our very first guest talking about mental health from that patient perspective. And so with that, I'd like to welcome onto the show, Geoffrey Radcliffe.
Hi, Katie. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
It's really good to see you. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk about this. This is something that I have a lot of passion for, and I spend a lot of time talking to people in my social circle about the things that I do in therapy and the things I learn in therapy. And I'm really just excited overall to kind of share my journey and share what I've learned and kind of hopefully remove some stigmas from some of the things that I hear from my colleagues around therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was reading through your bio, you were saying that therapy is important, but things about men's mental health is important. Breaking down these stigmas in these different communities, I think is so important. So I'm just really grateful that you came on and that you're willing to tell your story. I know it can be hard to talk about this stuff. A lot of people like to say, "Oh, let's talk about mental health," but then when it comes to their own struggles, that's a whole new boundary to cross. So with that, just tell us who you are in your own words.
Certainly. I am a father first. I am a biological father to 2 and a stepfather to 4 and a step grandfather to 1. I am a family first person. Most of the people I talk to in my sphere of influence are my family, my parents, my kids, my brother, his kids. It's something that I really embrace. I love the family life. I love being connected in that group. I am, when I'm not being a dad, I am let's call me a serial entrepreneur. I like to start businesses. I have told many people I'm a garbage CEO, but I'm a fantastic founder. I like seeing an idea. I like taking something from 0 to 60. I've been involved with 3 businesses just this year. Bought, sold, one failed out, but I'm known for having a positive mental attitude. A lot of my colleagues and coworkers will compliment, like, how are you so positive all the time? How are you really happy all the time? And it dovetails nicely into my discussion around my mental health journey, because it's something that my mental health training with the therapists that I've been to and the things that I've been through, one of the things that I really enjoy and probably sort of the key takeaway is understanding why I'm feeling what I'm feeling in the moment. Why is something hitting me a certain way? And why am I acting the way I'm acting right now? And so I'll take the current moment for an example. When you were giving me some information on this broadcast and talking about the reach and what it does, I had just recently had the experience of trying to set up a men's mental health fundraiser as a partnership for a client of mine. They're in Oregon, and the founder, the guy putting it on, called me up and actually said, "Hey, we've got this great thing. We're going to raise all this money, but we can't actually find an organization that supports adult men's mental health." And I said, "Well, let me Google that for you, buddy. LMGTFY." So I went on the Google and I typed it in, and I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything regional that was taking donations, and I couldn't find anything national outside the VA. that had programs that would, take donations to help men with their mental health. And by men, I'm talking about adult men, fathers, businessmen, people like, I'm I'm a 45-year-old entrepreneur. I've been self-employed for most of my life, most of my
Mhm.
adult. Before that, I was a child, obviously, and not employed because children lazy, right?
Can't
Just
be,
as
yeah.
lazy.
Legal
Um,
problems.
right. So I started seeking where can I find where I can't believe there isn't anything. And I don't know, either blessed enough or brave enough to seek out therapy on my own. And
Mhm.
I'll tell you my story here in just a second, but I've had several therapists that have really impacted my life in multiple different ways. And as a result of that, I give my therapy secondhand. And now my therapist, he's the one I have now, his name is Nick, and he's fantastic. And one of the things he always reminds me is that as a head of a household, as a business owner, as an adult man, a lot of times you are not supposed to share your feelings. He's like,
Mm.
there's a lot of adult males out there who feel incredibly isolated and incredibly underappreciated and incredibly underloved because we were raised to just, tuck those feelings away.
Mm.
Be a man, don't cry, don't be a wuss. Take this thing and take it in stride and deal with it on your own.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of that started to come to light once my marketing business, post launch, where you and I worked together years ago, really started getting busy. I found myself being completely overwhelmed and feeling really, really isolated. And, the people that I surround myself with during the day, the people that worked on my team and the people that worked with me and for me, generally didn't want to hear my problems. They don't want to hear that I'm stressed out. I'm the boss. They don't want to hear
Right.
that I'm worried about, I'm worried about payroll and I'm worried about our reputation and I'm worried about this and I'm worried about, a new employee that, uses the bathroom too much in the middle of the day and the whole office stinks. These are all stresses that as the boss, I'm not allowed to have. When I would come home at night to my then ex-wife, she didn't want to hear about my stresses. She didn't care
Right.
because it was family time. She had her own stresses and my problems weren't relevant to her. My problems weren't relevant to the people I spent my day with. My problems weren't relevant to my spouse when I came home at night. So me really seeking therapy started with a mutual colleague. I went to this gentleman named Doug, and he says, "You know what? I know a guy who specializes in CEO therapists.
Mm.
I guess you can't actually have a specialty in this space, but he'd been doing it for years. And his name was Dr. Robert Diorio, and he'd been around Las Vegas, and I guess he'd seen many, many successful and unsuccessful entrepreneurs in the Valley. And I went and I met with Dr. Diorio. It took a while because I was first time in therapy. I wanted to check it out. I want to
Right.
call. I want to get the whole free phone call. So I called him and 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 called him. And finally, I got him on the phone. He says, "Listen, I deal with male CEOs as my specialty, as my primary focus." He goes, "Here's how it's going to work. I'm going to sit you down. I'm going to listen to you for 6 months. I'm not going to let you be a whiner. I'm not going to let you be a baby. I'm going to put your life into perspective. And I'm going to let you see that it's not really that bad. The things that you're stressing out about are in your own head." And he says, "I'm going to give you 6 months, then I'm going to fire you as a patient."
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that is exactly what I need right now. I need someone to help me put things into perspective. And it
Yeah.
was through that process. It was through the highs and lows where, I turned to other sources to calm myself, alcohol mostly, whenever I was in space. And I would go and I would sit in his name was Robert's office, and I would sit there and he would say, "Take 5 minutes and write down everything good that happened today." And the term that's popular now is, I think it's gratitude hacking,
Mhm.
is something that he taught me to embody that process. What am I really grateful for? Like, I'm right now between you and I've got 500 emails in my inbox. I got a dozen clients that want me to work on something right now. My brother's called me 4 times today to talk about something going on. My dad had a slip and fall in his kitchen a couple weeks ago. There's all sorts of things to be stressed out about, but it's really I think a targeted focus for me to sit there and say, I'm grateful for things.
Mm.
I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful to be on this show right now with you. I'm grateful that my
Mhm.
friend Katie has an amazing podcast that's growing in popularity and makes her happy. I'm grateful that I got a kitchen full of food and a pantry full of snacks. I'm grateful that I got a cool purple polo that I could wear on the show today. I'm grateful that I got a haircut last week. And by going through and doing that and picking just random things that I'm grateful for, it automatically shifts my focus on everything.
Mhm.
So as
Mhm.
as the positive mental attitude guy, I I kind of embody that and I feel that. And it's really a matter, it's easy to complain, right? It's really, really simple to say, I don't like this and I don't like that. And I don't want leftovers for dinner and I don't want this. But the fact that, you have a dinner to eat and the fact that you have somewhere to sit and the fact that I have a gorgeous photograph shot by my friend AJ right behind me are all things that kind of keep me positive in spite of any negative that happens in my life. So
Yeah,
Dr.
definitely.
Fiorio, he was very, very good about putting it into perspective and getting out of the moment. I actually have started to develop some rage tendencies and getting out of the moment. And the tapping therapy where you tap on your pressure points, some breathing techniques where I would find myself getting angrier and angrier and angrier and not knowing how to deal with it. Just,
Mhm.
you know, it just didn't make sense. I couldn't do it. But it took us 6 months and he flipped me on my ear and he taught me how to process and how to focus on the positive, even in the worst possible moments. Even
Mhm.
the moments where you feel like everything's going sideways and everything's down and it feels like there's no way out. It was the best takeaway was to say, okay, listen, just think about something good that happened today, something great. And if you've ever interacted with children when they come home from school and you say, how was your day? And they're like, what'd you do? Nothing. Really, really, it's that's our own process. We're trained from a young age to sort of not engage and don't complain, but we're also trained to not be happy. Like just get on with your job, just do the things that you do during your day, and don't worry about your own
Sure.
feelings. I
Sure.
had I had pushed all those down,
Yeah.
and
And as a
it,
CEO, that's something that I think is a little bit, it's challenging. You have to really come to terms with that. I know in your bio, you were saying you had since you moved here in '97, you've owned more than a dozen businesses. You've really gone through it, and I know other CEOs, they also will struggle with mental health, but also feel very much so alone. So I think that that's really interesting that you were able to find someone who specializes in that and then able to work through that from where you are, which is everybody has mental health, and but your boat really needed something a little bit different, I think.
yep, yep. So the experience with Robert was he was good. He was quite a bit older than me and put
Mhm.
me in place and gave me that sort of fatherly vibe that I needed at the time.
Okay.
Then he fired me after 6 months, and I went to find another therapist. And I got partnered up with someone who was very comforting. And she
Mhm.
was she was an older woman, and she would say, honey, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. But it didn't actually work for me. And I think this is really important to find a therapist that's not going to just gloss over. As
Yeah.
anybody seeking a therapist, I'm going to say definitely don't judge the book by the cover. Go to a few sessions,
Sessions. Yeah.
but not just judge. Because the first one, milk and honey, everything is fine, honey, everything is great. No, don't even worry about it, honey child. Everything is fantastic.
Yeah.
Just the experience, and it was great for one session, but then by the third or fourth session where I still had things on my mind, I said, this isn't for me. So I sought out another therapist, and he's been my therapist now for, gosh, 2.5 years. His name is Nick, and at first I read him right by the cover. He was
Mhm.
young, and he was just out of school, and very sort of not me. I like to talk, and I like to joke around, I like to goof around, and he was just sort of kind of therapy geeky and therapy, pro therapy, but he was so fresh out of school that every single one of his answers, every single one of the items we discussed was extremely academic.
Mm.
And as a businessman, I studied physics in college, so I like math too. As a businessman, I like cause and effect. As my brain is wired that way. Why am I thinking this way? So my best thing that I got was homework after every single session. I want
Mhm.
you to go watch this podcast. I want you to read this book. I want you to watch this YouTube series on the things that are bothering you. And it opened my eyes up to a world of real understanding. And I thought, this kid doesn't know anything about my life. He doesn't know anything. And it's
How
true.
could he understand?
He,
Yeah.
he'd never been a business owner. He'd never been a father. He'd never failed in business. He'd never gone through a messy divorce or custody BS. But he sat me down and he said, well, I got a lot of adult male clients like you, and they feel lonely and isolated. And what I need you
Mhm.
to do as homework is go and sit with 3 of your friends in the next month and tell them how you're feeling and tell them about this stuff. And
Oof.
I cringed at first. I'm like, oh God, I got to go talk about my feelings to my friends. You
Oh, yeah.
kidding me? No way I'm talking to my friends about my feelings. That's lame. He shifted my whole thinking on it and everything. And it has been really the cornerstone of my personality now for the last half decade. Every time I'll hear someone in the mall say something about therapist or therapy, and I'll run right over and be like, "You're in therapy too? I'm in therapy. What are you guys working on? Have you listened to this? Have you tried this? Have you done this?" And embracing the positive that comes out of it. Even now, I'll tell my fiance, I'm like, "Hey, listen to what I talked about in therapy today. Isn't this great? Isn't this great?" And she'd be like, "Yeah, but I don't." I'm like, no. Here's why you're feeling the way you're feeling.
Right.
Here's
Let
why
me
you're
explain
feeling
it.
right. So it's really been a fantastic experience for me going through and having an actual therapist. The way that it worked best for me, there's a company here in Las Vegas called Live Happy, and I'll give them a shout out because I'm very pleased with them. They take my insurance. I think I'm on Sierra Health and Life, and it's something like $25 a session for me, and it's all virtual. So I can sit in my kitchen, my living room, my bedroom, and I can get on my phone or I can get on the webcam and talk from my space. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people think it's going to be difficult to get up and drive and park and go in and sit in a weird waiting room and meet with your therapist. I am a huge proponent of telehealth on therapy because
Yeah.
you're talking, right? You're not looking at a rash on my eye. You're sitting there telling me, here's why you feel the way you feel, and here's why you act the way you act.
Yeah.
And if it's not too personal, I can talk about some of the major takeaways that I've learned.
Yeah, we can definitely jump into that. I think that it's great you're touching on teletherapy. It's opened a lot of doors for people. But just therapy in general, doing your due diligence and making sure that you find a therapist that will work with you. It's nice to hear that you've gone through that journey and that you are, continuing to go through it. I know here in Las Vegas, access to care has been historically hard for people. So that's great. That's a great resource to know that that's a location that can go in and potentially connect somebody with a therapist more easily.
I think it's fantastic. I tried the online resources and it just wasn't some of the major big ones that you see advertised on social media all the time. I don't know if they're a
Yeah,
sponsor or anything, but
yeah.
they were
No, they're
difficult
not
to get through.
sponsors. No, and I
It's
mean I've heard issues with them, and then I've heard issues with insurance companies who have maybe therapists on lists, but those are ghost lists, and so it's been a struggle. So it's nice that you've been able to find a resource that works and that works with your schedule. So for some people, in-person therapy might be great, but for some people it really might not, and to have that option for telehealth is really important. So with that, tell me about some of your major takeaways. Let's jump in.
so I'm a boisterous, funny presence, I'll call myself. I like to be the center of attention. I like to feel um, that I'm heard. Obviously, I've been talking nonstop for almost 20 minutes, which is pretty standard. I find that it comes from me and my upbringing. My parents were both working professionals. They were out of the house. We would see them, an hour at night maybe, but they
Right.
had their own lives. Me and my brother were kind of on our own to be raised. And this isn't meant as a knock on my parents. They're still together after, gosh, 50 plus years. They raised us in a loving household. We never wanted for anything, but we were the epitome of latchkey kids. And for those who are
Mm.
watching, who don't know what latchkey kids are, that's when you just come home from school and your parents give you a key and you're just in the house on your own for half of your day. I mentioned that term to an employee one time who was quite a bit younger. And she said, "You were in a gang?" Said, no, we weren't in the game. Let me go ahead and Google that for you. But we were left on our own, and because of that, you know, I developed, and my brother and I both developed this sort of real strong sense of bravado and false confidence.
Mm.
And because of that, the people in your social circle, loved ones, your life partners, children, even my own parents said, "Oh, you're fine. You're fine all the time. Hey, mom, I got a problem. You'll figure it out, honey. You're good." you're good. And what I didn't realize at the time was that that was really depressing to me because
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I had problems, and I felt like I was in a space, and I felt like I needed help, but I didn't have anyone to get help from. Couldn't talk
Right.
to my friends, they don't care. Jeff's fine. There's no problem with Jeff. He's good.
You're fine. Yeah.
Yep. So it sort of forced me to I was just getting angrier and angrier and becoming a curmudgeon old man. And then I got this current therapist, and he said, you know what the problem is that, not mathematically, but scientifically, your father wasn't there when you were young to tell you that you were doing a good job, to tell you that you were good enough. And again, I don't mean to be negative. This isn't my dad's fault, obviously,
Yeah.
but
I mean, they're working, right? You know, that
right,
happens.
right. They were doing their stuff, but this false bravado and, almost this constant sense of everything's okay comes from me needing to be told that everything's okay. I
Yeah.
need to be told that I'm doing a good job, and I need to be told that I'm good enough, and I need to be told that I'm loved enough. And of the takeaway from that, now after almost 5 years of regular therapy, is
Mhm.
that when I'm in a relationship, business, friendship, or even a loving partner relationship, I can go to the other people and say, "This is how I need you to treat me." And it took a long time for me to come around. I need to feel like I'm good enough.
Really?
And I was on a call with a client today, right, actually an hour before this, and I got cut off. And I said, "I'm sorry, guys, I need to feel important in these calls." And he owns the company, and I work for him. And I said, and then we all had a laugh, and it was a joke, but they didn't cut me off anymore.
Yeah.
I say it to my fiance, I need you to let me know that you love me. She's like, "Of course
Mhm.
I love you. I'm engaged to you." I said, "No, no, no. It's not good enough."
You need to tell
And
me. Yeah, this is what it sounds like that's part of your love language is really these,
right.
words of affirmation. You need to, and I'm kind of similar in that words of
Yeah.
affirmation are important.
Well, I think you're doing an amazing job, Katie, and I'm
Well,
very
thank
proud of
you.
you.
I take it. So I know we're already running out of time, which is too bad. But I do want to ask you this, because you have been in therapy for a while.
Mhm.
And so, just from your perspective, do you imagine that mental health challenge or these struggles are something that we should overcome? That maybe there should be an end game. You should put a little bow tie on your therapy and call it a day, or do you think it's something that you should accept as a part of you, and you imagine yourself perhaps going to therapy for however many years? You don't see a timeline on it.
That's a great question. I'm gonna answer that probably not in the most succinct way. I feel like there's a level of happiness that you'll constantly be at. Sometimes you'll
Mhm.
be happier and sometimes you'll be lower. Understanding where you are in your own scale is a success metrics for me. I'm unhappy. Why am I unhappy? I'm sorry. I'm unhappy. Why am I unhappy? Now I'm happy. Why am I happy? So
Right.
for me, completion or winning of mental health is understanding why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling and then being able to plot a plan. Turning off therapy for me is not something that I am currently considering because I like to explore different aspects. And as you start to peel away the onions of the layer, these are the things that are really bothering me. These are things that are kind of bothering me. These are things that are annoying. These are
Yeah.
things I want to know more about myself. I feel like the journey continues. The
Right.
journey goes on. It doesn't mean that it's triage as much of the time, but if I think of it in the same sense of physical wellness, if I've broken my leg, I got to go to physical therapy. But in a year, I'm jogging, and in 2 years, I'm training for a marathon.
Mm.
So it's a continued process, in my opinion. And I feel like more awareness is something that will give people better access to
Mhm.
anything in the space,
Yeah.
and um, more desire for people to want to be better. And taking away the stigma that you're broken if you're in therapy. I hate that. Absolutely hate it. I feel like you go to therapy to be better. No one gives you a hard time if you go to the gym. No one gives you a hard time if you take a walk to clear your head. But, "Oh, you're going to therapy? What is wrong with you?" So,
Yeah. That's the stigma.
I think it doesn't necessarily I don't think it ever ends. I feel like if anybody is gonna continue to improve their overall mental wellness, they need to just be a student of their mental health.
Yeah, it's a journey for sure.
Yeah,
And I like what you said about, it would be nice if more people chose to get on that journey and
right.
and to really try to improve themselves and to seek happiness. And I think that at the end of the day, isn't that what we all want, is just to be happy?
Yeah. Yes. And I don't think it always needs to be a paid solution.
Yeah.
I feel like there's plenty of like-minded individuals out there who could find a way to connect. I feel
Mhm.
like as the patient, you have to let your guard down. Going out
Yeah.
and even talking to a stranger about how you're feeling. Man,
Mhm.
I sure
It
am
really
nervous about the economy. That'll spark a whole conversation with some weirdo.
it really will. Maybe not one you wanna do, actually, but,
Right.
be willing to be vulnerable, if as long as you keep your shell up, you're not gonna be able to start
Right.
doing those metrics. Analytical approach, I love that. So, really
Yeah.
try and start looking at yourself,
Right.
and that's the first, I think, key is, okay, let's just observe what's going on. We
Right.
can't change anything until we understand.
Exactly. Exactly.
So what
So
does happiness look like to you?
happiness to me is found when I'm reminded that my problems could be a lot worse.
Mm.
Um, Kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier with the gratitude hacking, I am most happy. I'm most happy when I take a deep breath and I think, you know what I'm happy for? Item A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And that puts me in a good mood. And to even take that to the next level, when I can give someone else happiness, if
Mhm.
I sat down with someone and said, here's why I think you're feeling the way you're feeling. Or here's, that individual at your work that's giving you a hard time. Every bully's got a bully, I believe. There's a reason that everybody does things. They're not just being rude to you for the sake of being rude to you.
Mm.
There's a reason. Everybody should have the opportunity to tell their story. And if I can pass forward that message, it makes me feel happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, I mean, not only, and it seems like you're passionate about that, about, helping your friends and your family to get, quote unquote on the therapy train.
Oh yeah.
Because you've kind of mentioned that before.
Yep.
And so, why does mental health, really matter to you? Why does sharing it matter to you? I know that, we've talked a little bit about your journey. Is there anything else that you want to kind of tell us as we wrap up?
I think that the ability to understand why you're feeling what you're feeling has changed me, evolved me like
Mm.
a butterfly coming out of a chrysalis. I am more aware of my feelings and more happy than I've been in decades because of just the understanding. Though I feel the way I feel because of A, B, and C. And the people who are interacting with me are doing it because of X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
And it doesn't become a battle. You understand. I don't know. It's just this match of you're here and I'm here, and this is where we are. If you're
Mhm.
here and I'm here, then we're butting into each other. But it really is a measure of finding peace and finding cooperation in the world with the individuals that you interact with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. I'm glad that you are the happiest you've ever been, and yet you are still a proponent of continuing to improve yourself and continuing to go to therapy. And it just goes to show that there's always, as long as there's tomorrow, there's a chance. And
Right.
I think that that's really amazing.
That's deep. I'll put out there that I haven't figured it all out. I'm still
Yeah,
learning every single day, but I
absolutely.
will be a lifelong studier of mental health wellness.
Yes. And that's cool. I'll be a lifelong studier right along with you. And
Cool.
I think that it's similar in that, a lot of us, we have our own personal experiences, and we have to be able to break down those walls and continue on that journey in order to really see that happiness. So I felt that definitely the same way, that,
Good.
therapy is significantly improved. And then the ability to talk to others. And so I know there are other resources. You said it doesn't have to just be therapy. What are some other resources that you've used, now that we're kind of finishing up?
There were some specific, I don't know what you call them, celebrity therapists that my
Okay.
therapist turned me on to. Maybe I can send some links, and as you publish this, you can include them in the document. But there's some good TED Talks. There's some great YouTubers. There's some books that are fantastic on reading. I wish I had a list handy that I could rattle off, but my 5 pillars of my life, I think
Yeah.
about my family, my career, my physical health, my general happiness, and am I doing something to entertain and, I don't know, challenge myself at the same time? So
Yeah.
on all 5 of those aspects, I think, okay, where am I at on like a 1 to 10 scale every single time I sit down and do therapy?
Mhm.
So I've got various resources for every single one. I'm happy
Well,
to.
cool. Okay, well, I'll definitely get those from you, and then we'll make sure that we post them when we post our video
Cool.
on the Katie Rose Wechter YouTube channel. So definitely make sure that you guys check that out, and then join us every first and third Wednesday of the month here live on PR Connections Radio. And just thank you so much, Geoff, for coming in, for being so open, and just being willing to talk about this. And I'm just so grateful for our friendship.
I'm grateful too. I'm in a better mood already.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much again.